There is a truth about the sadistic narcissist that will completely change your perception of emotional manipulation. A truth few dare to face, but one that can save years of confusion and unnecessary suffering. You believe it takes months, perhaps years, to identify a sadistic narcissist. You believe they are masters of disguise, impossible to unmask quickly, but that belief is exactly what they want you to think. The reality is simpler and more disturbing. You can identify a sadistic narcissist in under 3 minutes. 3 minutes of conscious observation are enough to capture the signs that reveal the presence of the emotional predator. Carl Jung, the pioneer of depth psychology, understood that the human shadow always reveals itself through micro-expressions, seemingly harmless behaviors, and automatic reactions that escape conscious control. He discovered that narcissistic sadism has a specific energetic signature, a pattern of subtle pleasure extracted from the discomfort of others. The sadistic narcissist cannot completely hide their nature, because the pleasure they derive from others' suffering is stronger than their capacity for self-control. It's a compulsion, a need that leaks through every gesture, every glance, every chosen word. But here's what most don't understand. You've already felt the presence of this energy. That unexplained discomfort in the presence of certain people. That feeling that something is wrong, even when everything seems perfectly normal on the surface. That shiver down your spine that you learned to ignore because you couldn't rationally explain it. Your primitive instinct, your ancestral wisdom has already identified the predator. The problem is that your rational mind has been trained to distrust this intuitive wisdom. You were taught to give the benefit of the doubt, to be polite, not to judge by first impressions. But what if this social conditioning was exactly what makes you vulnerable to the emotional predator? What if politeness and open-mindedness were the tools the sadist uses to gain access to your psyche? Today you will learn to trust this intuitive wisdom again. You will understand that there are 5 specific signs, 5 manifestations of the sadistic nature that inevitably reveal themselves within the first few minutes of interaction. Signs your unconscious already recognizes, but your conscious mind hasn't yet learned to interpret. But before revealing these signs, you need to understand something crucial about the dynamic you are about to unmask. Pause for a moment and be brutally honest with yourself. How many times have you felt a strange discomfort in someone's presence, but convinced yourself you were overreacting? How many times have you noticed a different gleam in someone's eye when you made a mistake, but dismissed that perception as paranoia? How many times have you noticed that certain people seemed more animated, more present, more interested when you or others were going through difficulties? And how many times have you rationalized that as genuine compassion or concern? Do you recognize this feeling? The feeling that you are being studied, observed, tested in every interaction, as if your every word were an opportunity for the other person to confirm some theory about your inadequacy or vulnerability. Now think about those people who make comments that sound like jokes but leave you feeling diminished. Those who interrupt your stories to correct irrelevant details. Those who show a peculiar interest when you mention personal or professional problems. If you are recognizing these patterns, it's because you have been a target of this type of emotional predation. You have been studied, tested, and possibly manipulated by someone who finds subtle pleasure in the discomfort of others. Your intuition wasn't wrong. Your discomfort wasn't paranoia. Your self-preservation instinct was trying to alert you to a toxic dynamic that your rational mind couldn't fully process yet. The sadistic narcissist functions like a specialized energetic vampire. They don't just drain your energy. They find specific nourishment in your confusion, your insecurity, your doubt about your own perception of reality. While you question your intuition, they feed on your uncertainty. While you give the benefit of the doubt, they collect data on your vulnerabilities. While you try to be understanding and empathetic, they map out exactly which buttons to push to generate the type of emotional reaction that nourishes them most. But there is a liberating truth in this dynamic. The same compulsion that makes them dangerous is also what makes them identifiable. They cannot completely resist the pleasure they derive from others' discomfort. This pleasure always leaks through microscopic signs that you can learn to detect. Your internal protection system, this ancestral wisdom residing in your unconscious, already recognizes these signs. You just need to learn to translate this primitive language into your awakened consciousness. Do you recognize this urgent need to develop rapid emotional discernment? It's because you have understood that you can no longer afford to ignore the warning signs your psyche is constantly sending. Today you will learn to decode these signs in under 3 minutes. You will understand that protection does not come from generalized distrust, but from the refined ability to recognize specific patterns of emotional predation. Your vulnerability is not in your sensitivity. It is in your lack of conscious discernment about how that sensitivity is being exploited. To understand how to quickly identify a sadistic narcissist, you need to understand the fundamental nature of this psychological pathology. Narcissistic sadism is not just a combination of narcissism and sadism. It is a specific form of emotional vampirism, where pleasure is extracted from the feeling of superiority gained through the controlled suffering of others. Jung discovered that the human shadow contains not only repressed impulses, but also perverse inversions of basic human needs. The sadistic narcissist represents an inversion of the natural human need for connection and empathy. Where a healthy person finds pleasure in shared joy, the sadist finds pleasure in the shared pain they themselves inflict. Imagine an energetic vampire who specializes in a very specific type of emotional nourishment, the energy generated by others' embarrassment, confusion, insecurity, and doubt. Unlike the common narcissist who seeks admiration and validation, the sadistic narcissist seeks something darker, the confirmation of their superiority through demonstrating their ability to cause discomfort in others. This type of emotional predator operates through what Jung would call inverted shadow projection. They project their own internal inadequacy not through guilt or shame directed at others, but through the active creation of inadequacy in others. They alleviate their internal pain by creating external pain and observing it with subtle pleasure. The energetic signature of the sadistic narcissist is unique. They demonstrate a state of heightened presence and animation when in the presence of others' vulnerability, error, suffering, or embarrassment. They cannot completely hide this animation because it represents the moment they are feeding on their preferred form of emotional nourishment. The mechanism works as follows. Your primitive psyche instantly recognizes this energetic signature as a threat. You feel a visceral discomfort in the presence of this person because your internal alarm system has detected a predator specialized in exploiting human vulnerabilities. But here's the key to rapid identification. The sadistic narcissist cannot wait long to test your reactions. They need to quickly confirm if you are a viable target for their specific type of emotional nourishment. Therefore, they always perform quick tests within the first minutes of interaction. These tests have a dual function: to map your vulnerabilities and to generate the first doses of emotional energy they need. They are essentially tasting your emotional food to see if you have the flavor they are looking for. The compulsive nature of these tests is what makes the sadistic narcissist identifiable in under 3 minutes. They literally cannot resist the temptation to quickly test if you will react in ways that provide them sadistic pleasure. When you understand you are being tested, and when you learn to recognize the specific nature of these tests, you develop the ability to identify the predator's presence even before they have a chance to establish a deeper, manipulative dynamic. The 5 signs you are about to learn are not just indicators of a problematic personality. They are specific manifestations of sadistic compulsion that reveal themselves through behaviors the sadistic narcissist performs automatically, almost without being able to control. The first method to identify a sadistic narcissist in under 3 minutes is to observe their tests with cruel teasing. In the first moments of interaction, they will make a comment that seems like a harmless joke, but is actually a carefully disguised insult. They are testing your tolerance for disrespect and measuring your reaction to embarrassment. Observe not only what they say, but how they observe your reaction. There is a keen, almost scientific interest in how you respond to the comment. They are not trying to be funny. They are collecting data on your vulnerability to public embarrassment and your ability to defend yourself. If you nervously laugh, look away, or try to minimize the discomfort, they register this information as confirmation that you are a viable target. If you directly confront or show genuine indifference, they often lose interest quickly. The second method is the observation of micro-expressions of pleasure when something bad happens. This is perhaps the most revealing and disturbing sign. When you or another person makes a mistake, shows vulnerability, or feels humiliated, carefully observe the facial expression of the possible sadistic narcissist. Look for a slight smile they try to suppress, a specific gleam in their eyes, or a subtle change in posture that indicates heightened attention and interest. This pleasure is not just a lack of empathy. It is active anti-empathy. It is the presence of satisfaction generated by the suffering of others. A normal person shows discomfort, concern, or offers help when witnessing the suffering of others. The sadistic narcissist demonstrates a state of heightened animation and presence. It's as if they are watching their favorite TV show. The third method is to analyze their reaction to your small achievements and joys. How do they respond when you mention something good that happened in your life? The sadistic narcissist will demonstrate visible boredom, a change of subject, or a poorly disguised look of disdain. Your happiness does not serve as emotional supply for them. In fact, it bothers them because it contradicts the dynamic of superiority they need to maintain. They need you to be in a state of vulnerability, doubt, or need to feel energetically nourished. Observe if they quickly change the subject when you talk about your joys, or if they find subtle ways to diminish the importance of your successes. Some sadistic narcissists even go so far as to make comments that reinterpret your achievements as luck, coincidence, or the merit of others. A healthy person's genuine reaction to your joys is positive interest, shared celebration, or at least polite congratulation. The sadistic narcissist's reaction is disinterest, discomfort, or attempts to diminish your joy. These first three methods work because they reveal the fundamental nature of the sadistic narcissist. They only feel truly alive and present when in the presence of others' vulnerability, suffering, or subordination. They cannot feign genuine interest in your happiness and cannot completely resist the pleasure they derive from your discomfort. Their animation increases in the presence of your pain and decreases in the presence of your joy. This is the unmistakable energetic signature of the emotional vampire specialized in narcissistic sadism. When you learn to detect these patterns within the first minutes of interaction, you develop a protective ability that can save months or years of subtle psychological manipulation. The fourth method for quickly identifying a sadistic narcissist is to observe their pleasure in publicly interrupting and correcting. They feel a visible satisfaction in interrupting your stories, contradicting your viewpoints, or correcting you on trivial matters, especially when others are present. This is not just common arrogance or a need to be right. It is the specific pleasure derived from the act of publicly diminishing you and establishing immediate dominance. Observe how they choose moments when you are engaged in a fluid conversation to insert their corrections or contradictions. Also note how they choose irrelevant details to dispute, completely ignoring the main point of your communication. They are not interested in improving the quality of the conversation. They are interested in creating a moment of embarrassment where they demonstrate intellectual or social superiority over you. A normal person who has a correction to make usually waits for an appropriate moment, makes the observation respectfully, and focuses on aspects that truly matter for communication. The sadistic narcissist interrupts, chooses irrelevant details, and insists on creating a moment of public exposure of your supposed inadequacy. The fifth and most revealing method is to observe their reaction to others' pain in general, not just yours. This goes beyond the common lack of empathy of regular narcissism. It is the active presence of anti-empathy, a keen interest, and an eerie calm when anyone is suffering or in distress. When someone tells a story of suffering, illness, loss, or trauma, carefully observe the body language of the possible sadistic narcissist. They show greater attention, ask more questions about specific details of the suffering, and maintain more intense eye contact during accounts of pain. This is especially disturbing when it happens with strangers or casual acquaintances. A normal person shows discomfort, offers sympathy, or changes the subject when confronted with accounts of suffering from people they don't know well. The sadistic narcissist demonstrates increased interest and asks questions that prolong the narrative of suffering. They may even demonstrate a superficial false concern, but their body language reveals animation and genuine interest in the pain of others. It's as if they are watching a fascinating film where the pain of others is the main entertainment. The combination of these 5 methods creates an unmistakable profile. When you observe someone who tests your tolerance for disrespect, shows pleasure in others' mistakes, demonstrates disinterest in your joys, finds satisfaction in publicly diminishing you, and shows peculiar interest in suffering in general, you are in the presence of a sadistic narcissist. Rapid identification is possible because these behaviors are compulsive. The sadistic narcissist cannot resist these opportunities to test, provoke, and energetically feed on the discomfort of others. It's a need stronger than their capacity for social self-control. When you develop the ability to quickly recognize these signs, you gain the capacity to protect yourself before the emotional predator has time to establish a deeper manipulative dynamic. You can adjust your boundaries, limit emotional access, and avoid becoming a preferred target for this specific type of emotional vampirism. Your primitive intuition already recognized these patterns. Now your awakened consciousness has the tools to interpret these warning signs and act accordingly within the first minutes of interaction. Protection begins with recognition. Recognition begins with conscious observation. And conscious observation begins now, at your next encounter with a possible emotional predator. Now that you know the 5 methods to quickly identify a sadistic narcissist, how do you put this knowledge into practice to protect your vital energy and psychological integrity? The first protective practice is to develop what Jung would call detached observation. During the first 3 minutes of any significant social interaction, consciously activate your analytical observation mode. Do not get emotionally involved. Simply observe and collect data. Ask yourself these questions during the interaction. How does this person respond when I mention something positive? What kind of comments do they make about me or others? How do they react when someone makes a mistake or shows vulnerability? Is there any pattern of subtle pleasure associated with others' discomfort? The second practice is to instantly trust your gut feeling. If you feel unexplained discomfort in someone's presence, do not rationalize that feeling. Your primitive psyche has detected something your conscious mind hasn't fully processed yet. Honor that ancestral wisdom. Create a personal rule. 3 signs from the 5 methods you've learned are enough to classify someone as potentially dangerous to your emotional health. You don't need scientific proof. You need preventative protection. The third practice is to establish immediate boundaries when you detect the signs. Do not directly confront a sadistic narcissist. This only confirms that you are a reactive target who can provide the emotional energy they seek. Instead, become energetically unavailable. Respond to tests with cruel teasing, with total indifference, or a change of subject. Do not show that you were affected. Do not try to explain why the comment was inappropriate. Simply refuse to participate in the dynamic they are trying to establish. The fourth practice is what can be called the steel mirror technique. When a sadistic narcissist tries to extract emotional reactions from you, reflect back a smooth, impenetrable surface. There is nowhere for them to energetically cling. Maintain your neutral tone of voice, calm facial expression, and brief, factual responses. You are not being rude. You are being protectively impervious to the attempt at emotional manipulation. The fifth practice is the development of what Jung would call conscious discrimination. Not every difficult person is a sadistic narcissist. Not every person who makes social mistakes is an emotional predator. You are learning to detect a specific pattern of pleasure extracted from others' suffering. Practice this discrimination by observing people in different social contexts. How do they react to suffering? How do they respond to others' joy? Is there consistency between what they say and what their body language expresses? The sixth and most important practice is the strengthening of your own sovereign identity. The more connected you are with your own intrinsic worth, the less vulnerable you become to external tests and provocations. Develop an intimate relationship with your own essence. Practice self-compassion. Celebrate your own achievements without needing external validation. The more nourished you are internally, the less attractive you become to energetic vampires. The sadistic narcissist specifically seeks out people who doubt themselves, who need external approval, who have difficulty trusting their own perception of reality. When you develop genuine confidence in your own inner wisdom, you naturally become repellent to this type of predator. Your daily practice of psychological protection begins with 3 minutes of conscious observation and can result in a lifetime of healthier relationships and preserved emotional energy. You are no longer the same person who began this journey of recognition a few minutes ago. Something fundamental has changed in your perception of the social reality around you. You have developed eyes that see through social masks and detect emotional predators before they have time to establish psychological domination. You now possess an ability that most people will take years to develop, if they ever do. The ability to identify a sadistic narcissist in under 3 minutes is not just a tool for protection. It is a form of personal sovereignty that completely transforms the quality of relationships you allow into your life. Your intuition wasn't wrong. Your discomfort wasn't paranoia. Your feeling that something was fundamentally wrong with certain people was an alarm signal from your ancestral wisdom trying to protect your vital energy from specialized emotional vampires. You are now the conscious guardian of your own emotional energy. You are the vigilant protector of your psychological essence. You are the trained observer who recognizes patterns of predation before they transform into established manipulative dynamics. Recognize the courage it took to absorb this knowledge. Many people prefer to remain vulnerable to emotional predators rather than develop the discernment needed to protect themselves. They fear being judged as distrustful or paranoid. But you chose conscious protection instead of unconscious vulnerability. You chose emotional sovereignty instead of social naivety. You chose to develop discernment instead of maintaining comforting illusions about human nature. This journey of individuation and protection does not end here. Every social interaction now becomes an opportunity to practice and refine your ability to quickly detect emotional predators. Each time you trust your intuition and act accordingly, you strengthen this protective ability. Remember, you are not becoming distrustful or closed off to genuine human connections. You are becoming selective about what kind of energy you allow to influence your psyche. You are developing healthy boundaries that protect your essence without hindering authentic relationships. The sadistic narcissist can only operate in the darkness of non-recognition. When you illuminate their patterns with awakened consciousness, when you name their methods with analytical clarity, when you respond to their tests with emotional sovereignty, they completely lose the power of manipulation over you. You have become energetically indigestible to emotional vampires. Your awakened consciousness is the most powerful antidote against sadistic manipulation. Comment which of the 5 methods alerted you most to patterns you weren't consciously able to identify. Your perception can awaken others to toxic dynamics they are unconsciously tolerating. Like if you felt the courage to trust your intuition and develop conscious emotional discrimination. Your courage strengthens the courage of others who need this same protection. Subscribe to continue this journey of individuation and development of emotional sovereignty. Because your essence deserves to be protected, nourished, and celebrated in relationships that honor your true nature. Unmask the predator. Protect your essence. Reclaim your sovereignty. The liberation is just beginning.